Hello.
Yeah, hi Dharminder, this is Navneet with Sushil calling from NIIT Technology Limited.
Okay.
Tell me something about your last project you did.
Yeah, last project was NBA Next Best Action. Actually, this is the product of telecom company called Etisalat. Like in India, we have Airtel, Vodafone, and many are there. But in Middle East companies, Saudi Arabia and Dubai, there is like only one leader is Etisalat. So for this company, we have developed one project called NBA. What is the project? What is this product is? Suppose if you are purchasing any item from the Flipkart or Amazon.com, then what will happen when you are going for payment? Suppose you have selected mobile to purchase, then when you are going for payment, it will show some other devices or other product also. Means they will show like options. The person who purchased this mobile also view this item and also purchase this item like pen drive or power box, whatever. Means based on the customer past history, they are showing some of other products also. So this is just to improve the business revenue. So same in telecom domain also. This project is also regarding that. Like as a customer, when we are calling to customer care and or through IVR, then IVR will take the request.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how you are using the web services in your project? Can you explain some, the application?
Yeah, see. So application, if you are here, means I can explain better. I can draw the diagram. And so what is this project? Suppose as a customer we are calling, okay. So some input JSP will be there, some front end UI will be there. There some customer care is sitting, or sometimes IVR will take the request. So they will enter some customer details. That customer details will be sent to the suppose directly if you are calling customer care, then that details will be sent to the NBA. So actually my work is on in this project many things is there, like you have one NBA, you have data warehousing, you have BSS, you have MDI, you have IN, you have HLR. So my work is on BSS. So to communicate between NBA to BSS or BSS to MDI or from IVR to NBA. So for all these web services is used. Like what will happen, suppose I'll explain some bit more about the project so that I can explain where I use the web services. Shall I go ahead?
In your application, how you are using web services?
Yeah, web services. We have written the web services to communicate between BSS, between NBA to BSS, between IVR to BSS. So like web services classes we have written, and we have provided also, like we have produced some web services, we have consumed some web services from the BSS, and some we have written also.
Like any time you have written some web services in your project and you just want to test them. So have you used any tool for testing them, testing the web services?
No. In my project, I didn't use personally any tool to test. Generally, I use like directly through URL I tested, or I have written the client code to test that web services or to consume that web services. Personally, I didn't use any tool.
Which protocol you are using to communicate with
HTTP. In RESTful web services, only HTTP protocol will be used. Okay. If you are using SOAP, then you will have SOAP-based protocol plus HTTP.
Okay, so how much you rate in web services?
Out of
10.
Out of 10, I can rate myself 6.5 to 7.
And in Java?
Which Java? Core Java, Servlet, JSP, JSP. Where?
Core Java.
Yeah, Core Java. Out of 10, I can rate myself 8.
Sorry?
8. Number 8.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Let's start with the Core Java.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So tell me something about what is the difference between the JDK and JRE?
Yeah, JDK and JRE. JDK stands for Java Development Kit, and JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. So when we are installing, if you want to run your Java program in your application, we have to install the JDK. Along with JDK, JRE also will be installed. So we can say JDK provides collection of tools to develop the application. Like JDK contains your private JRE also. JDK contains Java compiler, Java interpreter. So these are the components will be available in JDK. Now JRE folder contains the libraries. JRE folder contains the JVM virtually. So JRE mainly used to make the environment where your Java program can run. So two type of JRE you have, private JRE and public JRE. JDK you can install with JDK JRE will come. If you want, you can install the JDK, and or if you want, you can install separate JRE also. So both options are there.
So it means if we have only JRE,
Yeah.
we have some. If we have the JRE and we have some jar file,
Yeah.
then we can run the application.
Application. Yeah, 100% correct. To run the Java application, JDK not required. It is only for development.
So what is the difference between the jar and WAR file?
Yeah, jar means it is Java archive. Var means it is web archive. Means suppose if you want to combine collection of packages into one group, that you can place into jar file. But whenever you are developing web application, that web application may contain thousands of jar files, thousands of JSP, HTML file, classes, library. So if you want to club this all and that you want to deploy on the server, so on server always you have to deploy the var file. So var contains the complete web application. Suppose if you are developing a standalone application, then that is jar file. You can create the executable jar file, you can give to the client, they can start the application. But for web application, you have to deploy your application on the server. So that you can do with the help of var files only.
So, have you ever get chance to work on the Unix server?
Yeah. I got the chance to
how
work
you
on.
move the WAR files on the Unix server?
No, I don't have idea. I didn't
No.
work in real time. Myself, in my system, I have installed and I did some command. I learned how to use that in my project.
Anytime you change in your project code and you just want to move them on the Unix server, so production server, certification server, wherever.
Yeah.
What tool you use in this moving file?
Yeah, see, till now I'm working as a Java developer, software engineer. Till now I didn't get chance to deploy my application on the server. In future, if I get the chance, I'll go for that. Generally, I have some idea. Putty one tool will be used. Putty will be used one tool. You can say it is Unix admin. Putty one tool is there, or suppose some domain provider is there. They will give their control panel. So using that you can log in. I don't have idea, the real time experience. I don't have.
So what is the difference between the abstract class and interface? Some real example scenario in your project class, like you did.
Yeah,
in what situation you make your abstract class and interface?
Yeah, see. I'll give first general idea, then I'll come back to the example. In nutshell, I will explain. Interface is a contract between the client and the developer. For example, suppose I have banking application. In banking application, I have 4 modules: saving account, fixed deposit, current account, recurring deposit account. There is a chance that all these modules will be developed by different developer or different company also. There is a chance. So what I want there are some methods, some 20 methods I have. That 20 methods should be same across all the modules. Saving account customer or developer also has to override the same method. Other developer also has to override. Implementation may change, but if they want to check the balance, get balance method is there. It takes account number as a parameter. Return type is double. Withdraw method is there, deposit method is there, print statement method is there. So suppose these methods prototype are common among multiple subclasses. So if you want to centralize common method prototype, you can write inside the interface. So interface contains common method prototype that will be implemented by multiple subclasses. Now coming to the abstract class. After interface, you can write the abstract class. Now in abstract class, you can write abstract method also, concrete method also. Now why to write concrete method? There are some situations where multiple subclasses have some method behavior is common. Suppose print a statement method is there. Its responsibility to take the account number and print the statement. Suppose this method behavior is common in all the subclasses. So why to write the same method body in all the subclasses? It will give you code duplication problem. In future, if you want to change all the subclasses, you have to modify. So better what we can do, we can write that common method behavior in the abstract class. So we can say in one line, interface contains common method prototype, abstract class contains common method behavior, and concrete class contains a specific method behavior.
Okay. Okay, then, so, let's just start with the serialization.
Okay.
What is serialization?
What is serialization? See, one question I have in my mind. See, I should explain the answer whatever way I'm explaining, or I should go in some nutshell.
Sorry, I'm not getting you.
No, I'm asking whatever question you are asking, I'm answering. So I should explain in the same way, or I should go some little bit nutshell.
Just
summarize. Point to point.
Get the chance to work with the serialization, or you have a theoretical knowledge only? You can go in brief with somewhat.
Yeah. So see, serialization now you ask. Serialization means it is a process of saving a state of an object to the file. For example, suppose two Java application you have. One application is installed on one machine, another application is installed on second machine. Now I want to invoke the functionality of application which is running on remote machine. Means from one machine I want to communicate, or I want to invoke the functionality of another machine. So when we are invoking the functionality of remote machine, there is a chance you have to pass some data. So if this is primitive type of data, you can pass directly variable. That value you can use. But sometimes you will get the requirement to pass object as a parameter, object as a data for communication. So when you are passing object reference variable from one machine to another machine, from one application to another application, then reference variable contains address of an object. So passing the address of one object from one machine to another machine, we cannot access the data there, because suppose one machine is in your Windows, another is in your Linux. Windows you have NTFS file system, Linux you have ext file system. So they cannot communicate. So whenever you have a requirement to send the object from one machine to another machine, one application to another application, then using serialization, you write the data of object into file. You send the file over the network, and using deserialization, again you typecast, again you convert that file into object, and you can use the data. So serialization is the process of saving a state of an object to the file.
How you can implement it?
Yeah, it's very simple. You write a class. Suppose I have an account class that I want to serialize. So write account class. You define all the variables. Next, to serialize this, you create first. You create file output stream object. File output stream FOS equal to new file output stream. Here you pass some file name. Suppose account.ser. Next, you create object output stream OOS equal to new object output stream. Pass file output of stream object as a parameter. Next, you call OOS.write object, complete object if you want to write, OOS.write object of account. Then only these three lines is enough to serialize your object into file.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. So what is the difference between the transient and static?
Yeah.
In the serialization.
What is the use of transient and static in serialization?
Difference.
Difference. Yeah.
Class sometimes don't want to make the serialized object. So we realize transient and static keywords. So what is the difference between them?
See, when we are using transient, generally a static member means serialization means object state will be saved to the file. And object state means always instance variable. A static data means only one memory will be allocated. It is a class data, so it will not participate in serialization. In the case of transient, like multiple variables we have, all are instance type. From that, some variable I don't want to serialize. Then we can mark that transient. So whenever we are using transient, then that variable will not participate in serialization. Now you are asking the difference. Suppose I have a static string str equal to JDBC, okay? And next I have transient integer x equal to 10. Got it?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I am serializing this. I serialized. Now when I will deserialize, then in the case of a static, I will get the JDBC because it is class data that you will get at the time of deserialization. But when you are deserializing this variable x, you will get the default value. This is the main difference between static and transient. At the time of deserialization, for a static, you will get the class data. But for transient, you will get always default value.
Okay. So what is the checked exception and unchecked exception?
Yeah, checked and unchecked exception. See, there are two types of exception, checked and unchecked exception. If your code inside the method or constructor throwing some exception, and if that exception is checked by the compiler is forcing you to report about the exception by writing try catch block or by using throws keyword, then those exception categories are called as checked exception. Unchecked exception means this is also called as runtime exception. If some code inside the method throwing exception and compiler is not telling anything, whether you want to report or don't report, compiler is not informing anything. So that is called as unchecked exception. Now what are unchecked exception? Runtime exception and their all subclasses are unchecked exception. Apart from this, all are checked like IO exception, SQL exception, class not found exception. These all are checked exception.
Okay. Why we use exception?
Why we use exception?
Yeah.
See, why we use exception handling or exception?
Yeah.
Suppose when we are writing some code, suppose 1000 line of code is there inside the method. Okay.
Yeah.
From 1000 line of code, first 900 line of code executed successfully. Okay. Now 901 line, or suppose 901 to 905, these 5 lines are giving some problem. If some problem occurred in your code, that control will be transferred to the JVM. JVM will analyze the problem and it will create some exception related object and it will throw that object in your program. If you are not handling that object, what will happen? JVM will propagate that object to the default exception handler. Default exception handler will print the error message and your program will be terminated. Means here abnormal termination happen. But what is my requirement? Because of this 5 line is giving the problem, I don't want to terminate the entire program.
Yes.
Because of giving this 5 line problem, I can use try catch block. So if this 5 line giving the problem, this 5 line should not execute, but remaining 900 lines should execute. So in this scenario, we can use exception handling.
Okay. So what is the finally block? And if we are putting return statement, whether finally block will be executed or not?
Where you are putting return, in try or catch?
In try.
Yeah, if you are putting return a statement in try block also, before returning the control to caller method, it has to execute finally block. So finally block will be executed always without fail. Only one scenario it will not execute, that is system.exit.
Okay. If you put in catch block return?
Yeah, it has to execute finally block.
Okay. Okay. What is the synchronization in the thread?
Yeah, synchronization means, suppose it is a process of enabling the lock of an object. Every Java object is associated with some lock mechanism. By default, this lock is disabled. If you want to enable the lock so that it should work in multi-threaded environment, multiple threads should not enter into critical section at once. So there you can use synchronization just to enable the lock of an object so that multiple threads should not allow to access that object concurrently.
Okay. What is the difference between runnable and thread?
Runnable and
thread.
Thread class, runnable interface and thread class. So runnable is the interface available in java.lang package. It has only one abstract method, public void run. Thread is a concrete class available in java.lang package. It is also implementing runnable interface. It has thread class has overwritten the run method. They have given dummy implementation.
Okay. So which one is better to use, runnable or thread class?
Yeah, we can't say which one is better to use. It depends on the requirement. Yeah, it depends on the requirement. Suppose when we are both are same, both implementation are 100% same. Now the difference is when you are writing your user-defined thread class by extending thread, because Java does not support multiple inheritance with classes, so you cannot extend any other class. But when you are writing user-defined thread by implementing runnable interface, then what will happen? You have a chance to extend other class also, and you can implement other interfaces also.
Okay. Which version of Java you are using?
Yeah, Java 6 I use, but I am very much comfortable with Java 7 also. In my project, they are not using 7, but I learn all the new feature of Java 7 also, and some bit of Java 8 also I started.
And it means whatever new features in Java 1.5 you maybe use.
Yeah, Java 1.5 new features, I'll start from the very basic. Enum is the new keyword added in Java 5.
Okay.
Okay, next they have given hexadecimal floating point literal in Java 5. Next they have given enhanced for loop.
Yes.
And next they have given variable arguments. Then they have given generics, enum, annotation, scanner class, formatter class. These are the get env method in system class.
Okay. So what is the auto boxing?
What is auto boxing? Yeah, auto boxing also new feature of Java 5. What is auto boxing? See, up to JDK 1.4, you have integer x, primitive integer x. You cannot store into collection. Array list object you create, you cannot store primitive value because add method taking object as a parameter. Okay. So whenever you have a requirement to get primitive as an object type, you have to use the wrapper class. You have to create object of integer class. You have to pass primitive. Then you can get wrapper object. So primitive to wrapper or wrapper to primitive, you are responsible to perform up to 1.4. But Java 5 supports auto boxing process. It is the process of converting primitive to wrapper, wrapper to primitive automatically.
Okay. So and what are the new features in Java 6 and Java 7?
Java 6 in core Java part they didn't add much feature, and some compiler related API they have given, means you can write now compiler object you can create, means suppose online if you want to make online compiler where user can post the Java program, they can compile and execute the program. So compiler related API they have given in Java 6, and XML processing they have improved. In JDBC they have given auto driver loading.
Okay, correct. And what are the in Java 7 features?
In Java 7, very new, very good feature they have added, like starting from literals. They have given binary literals in Java 7. Yes. Up to 1.6, you can represent integer number in 3 format only: decimal, hexadecimal, and octal. But from Java 7, you can represent binary number in your Java program. Yes. Next, in Java 7, they have given in one catch block, you can write multiple exceptions. Yes. Next, they have given rethrowing exception with improved type checking. Next, they have given diamond operator. And next, they have given wonderful feature is try with resource. Now you no need to write finally block to close up the resources. So these are the important feature of Java 7.
Okay. And you know about the design pattern?
Yeah, I have idea of design pattern also.
So can you give name of some design pattern?
Like GOF design pattern, like creational behavioral is there in that. Mostly we will use singleton design pattern and factory design pattern, transfer object. If you go to J2EE, you have front controller, MVC, intercepting filters, DAO. These are the design patterns. Mostly we will use in our project.
So you know how to create singleton?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, no problem. And other things, you have worked on web services.
Yeah.
So, you know what is a WSDL?
WSDL file. Yeah, it is web service descriptor language. In that, like suppose one class is there, their methods are there. So these classes and methods should be used by other clients. So that complete information will be stored in WSDL file in the form of XML. That WSDL file you have to give to the client using the IDE. It will generate classes from the WSDL file, and that service they can utilize.
What is the difference between the SOAP web service and RESTful web service?
Yeah, okay. So in SOAP-based web services, it is based on some standards. They are following some standards, like some interface hierarchy is there. But in RESTful web services, there is no standard. This is the first difference. Second difference, SOAP-based web services, you have to use the protocol SOAP and HTTP. But RESTful web services based on only HTTP protocol. SOAP-based web services forcing you to use only XML for communication. But in RESTful web services, you have flexibility. You can use JSON, you can use XML, you can use simple text, you can use HTML, you can use PDF. These are the main differences. SOAP-based web services are very heavyweight web services, and you must have to use some IDE to develop that. But RESTful web service, even you can develop in Notepad also. It is very lightweight. To test the SOAP-based web services, it is very long process. But RESTful web service, you can test using simple URL also.
And you have worked on the Hibernate
Yeah.
and JSP Servlet. You have worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First project I use JSP Servlet. Generally, we will use the code of JSP Servlet always.
Okay. So, what is a servlet context object?
Yeah, servlet context object is the web container object. Like in three type of scope you have in servlet. Servlet context, you have servlet request and session. So if you want to use any data among all the servlet, and all the user can use that data, so that you can write in the XML file, web.xml, servlet context parameter you can define. That is, you can say universal object, universal data that can be accessed anywhere inside the application by any user.
So how many instances of servlet context will be there?
Servlet context, only one instance will be there.
Okay. And what is a servlet config?
Servlet config object, it is related to your particular servlet. If you want to specify servlet config object or servlet config parameter, that you have to write inside the servlet. Whenever you are defining servlet in web.xml, inside that init param name, param value you have to specify. So if you have a requirement to use some data for particular servlet, then you can go for servlet config. Their object will be created. How many users are coming, that many times it will. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And what are the implicit objects in the JSP?
In JSP, around I think 9 implicit objects are there. Like out is there, you have request, you have session, config, you have page, you have next application context, you have exception is there, session is there, config is there.
Okay. And you have worked on the Spring also?
Yeah, Spring also I worked.
Okay. So, what are the main features of Spring?
Spring has multiple modules, like you have IOC, inversion of control, next you have data access object, next you have MVC, you have AOP. So Spring comes with everything, whatever you want, like JDBC, Servlet, JSP, Struts, all combination of they have given a Spring.
Okay. So what is the auto wiring in Spring?
Yeah, see in Spring you can inject the dependency two ways. First is implicit wiring, second is explicit. Explicit wiring means you have to configure the bean as well as whatever dependency is there in that class, you have to write the configuration for that. Like if you want setter, you have to use property tag. If you want constructor arg tag, you have to use. If you want to instruct the Spring container to do this dependency automatically, then we can use auto wiring process. So for auto wiring, it will use internally field injection, and it will we can say many are there, AutoWire, by type, by name, and constructor. They can inject the dependency automatically.
What are the main interfaces in Spring?
Spring main interfaces are application context, next XML bean factory, next
So what is the difference between application context and bean factory?
Yeah, bean factory is the, we can say, super of application context. In bean factory, you don't have annotation support. later in Spring, I think 2.0, they have added the annotation related. So to support annotation processing, they have added application context. So main difference here, annotation is not there. In application context, you have annotation processing tool. Next difference, when you are using bin factory, then by default loading type will be lazy loading. But in application context, default loading type is aggressive loading. Bin factory does not support event handling, event publishing, but application context support event handling, event publishing also. Bin factory, you can say like some more differences. Bin post processors are not there. Bin pre-destroy is not there. This is there in application context.
Yeah,
So life cycle is improved a lot.
Okay, got it. How you create the beans using Spring?
How to create bin using a Spring?
Yeah,
Bean object. How to get bean object from the Spring context? That is your question. Yeah. So yeah.
You need to configure. So how you will configure and get to?
Yeah. Suppose I have class imply.
Yeah.
Okay. Imply class having EID and ename. So this bean I will configure in a Spring and I will access in my application. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah. So application context.xml file, you write bean ID equal to some EMP, class equal to, suppose some package name is there, com.NIIT, some project name dot imply. Then under that, suppose I want to use setter injection. So property name equal to, suppose ID and value equal to some 99. Next property name equal to ename, value equal to some Dharmendra. Now this bean configuration done. How to access in the application? So you have to use application context CTS equal to new class path XML application context, and then two option is there. CTX dot get bean of EMP. It will return object type. That object you can typecast into imply and you can access. Second option, if you don't want to typecast, then get bean method CTX dot get bean. In double quote you write EMP and second parameter you pass default object of imply class, imply.class. So directly it will return imply type object. You don't need to typecast. Both the options as per your requirement you can use.
Okay. And Hibernate you have worked on. So then what are the main interfaces in Hibernate?
Main interfaces like you have configuration, session, transaction, criteria, then you have query, session factory. These are the main interfaces.
So what is the difference between load and get method in Hibernate?
Load and get method means whenever you are loading, both are used to get the object from the database. But when you are calling the load method, then it will not go to the database directly. It will try to access the data from the cache memory. Okay. If data is not there, first it will search in cache memory. Not there, it will go to the database. It will access that. If data is there, it will return. If it is not there for given identifier, it will throw exception called object not found exception for particular identifier. But in the case of get, it will not search the data from your cache. Always it will hit the database and it will access the record. If it is not there, it will return null. It will not throw any exception. So we can say, if you are not sure whether data is there in your database or not, always use get method. If you are sure data is there for given identifier, go for get method. Sorry, go for load method.
Okay. So how will you save a object
into database? Yeah. So what you have to do, first you have to create configuration object. Configuration CFG equal to new configuration, and next you have to call configure CFG dot configure. Then you create session factory object, session factory, some factory equal to CFG dot build session factory. Then you create the entity object like imply EMP equal to new imply. Call all the setter method, make the object ready. Then you open the session SES equal to session factory dot open session. Then you begin the transaction TX equal to session dot begin transaction. Then session dot save of that object you pass. Then you call transaction dot commit, or if some problem occurred in cache block, you can call transaction dot rollback. At last you call session dot close.
Okay. So in Hibernate, like we have in classes or objects, we have the hierarchy. So in Hibernate we can configure that hierarchy and save them also. Yeah. we can do that.
Come again, I didn't get you.
I am telling that like object-oriented, we have the hierarchy mechanism also.
Yeah, like parent class is there, some
Parent,
person is there, their subclass employee is there, okay?
So those hierarchy we can maintain in the Hibernate also.
Yeah, very easily, because they have given inheritance mapping, 3 type of inheritance mapping. Using that we can do table per subclass, table per concrete class, single table mapping, all are there.
Yeah, that's okay. And you have worked on struts also.
Yeah, struts I used in first 2 projects. You can ask question, but I don't remember everything, but I have good idea.
Yeah, that's all. I will. So how will you configure struts? Do you know?
Yeah. You have to write a struts-config.xml file. Under that, you have to configure form bean class. You have to configure actions and forwards, whatever forwards are there, global forwards, local forwards, exceptions are there. You can register the message bundles. You can, if you want to use custom like plugins, if you want to use that, you can register.
Correct. How your application will access the struts-config.xml?
How application?
Yeah. Like you want to struts. Struts.config.xml is part of the struts.
Yeah.
But how we configure struts to access those files? In web.xml we do something?
Yeah, web.xml you have to configure. Like in either you are using a Spring or your Action Servlet, you have to configure.
Yeah, that's
everywhere you have to configure front controller servlet, either it is Struts or JSP or Struts 2 or Spring. In Struts you have to configure Action Servlet. Struts 2 you have to configure filter dispatcher. JSP you have to configure faces servlet. Spring you have to configure dispatcher servlet.
Okay. How you will implement the validations in Struts?
Yeah, 2 is there. 2 validation you can use, basic validation and framework validation. If you want to use basic validation, in validate method you have to write the validation logic. And if you want a framework validation, then you have to write rules.xml is there, validation rules.xml and myform validation.xml. There you have to configure the form on what property you want to apply the validation. So that property you specify, and then what you want, like required you want, mean length, max length, long, date, that you can specify.
Okay. Do you know some different actions in Struts?
Yeah. In Struts, I think around 9 actions are there.
Yes. Can you name?
Yeah. Action is there. You have action, then you have dispatch action, mapping dispatch action, lookup dispatch action. Next you have download action, include action, forward action, local actions.
Okay. So, Dharmendra, we are done with your interview.
Okay.
So, do you have any question with us?
Yeah, it's nice talking to you guys. And I want to know, like, what type of project you are going to assign. If I got selected here, what are the project you are going to assign, on what technology I am going to work with?
Yeah, we can't tell this thing because your resume has been forwarded by HR and they are interacting with the consultants about that.
Okay.
But it will be Java. And,
what technology? Any idea you have?
We can't say that one, but it will be from one of the technology frameworks we have asked you. So most probably it will be from these. Yeah, these technology we have asked. So we can't tell exact what will be the.
Okay, no issue. One more question I want to ask. How was my interview? Any suggestion you want to give for my next company? Anywhere I want to go for interview?
It's a good. You have given good explanation.
Okay.
And HR will update with the.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.